I think it's about time for a second build of the league, and this time I'm going to be playing of Self-Cast, Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice, Elementalist, and we are going Poison. The idea behind this is that I want to play a build that is capable of farming the Abyss strats and on at least 2 risks. So I was able to farm this on my Power Siphon build, but on a build that is not a caster, you have to waste like 5 or 6 points to spec into Caster Mastery in order to open the chest. So it's not very optimal, and yeah, therefore I'm going to play with a caster build. The earliest version of this build that I have seen was Jangron doing it on an Elementalist, and ever since I have really wanted to try out the Golem angle on the Elementalist. For the Elementalist as a shell, this is going to be very tanky on a budget, and we have better KOL with Golem because you don't have to resummon them. And the Golem give you AoEs, give you dot multis, give you tankiness, and it's just overall very good feeling when you are getting into the shell of an Elementalist this league. Now, playing an Elementalist also comes with a few cons, and that is this build is going to be poison and dots only. It's going to have lower ES scaling, obviously, when comparing to a build like Occultist, where you can go scale crits and scale infinite money into the build. The price of Megalomaniac jewels is the only deciding factors on the budget of this build. It can range from 10 to 20 divine depending on the markets. Of course, you can always play without the 3 Megalomaniac for Primordial Bond, but you will lose a lot of damage, and for the purpose of this build, I highly recommend you to only switch after you have get your hands on 3 of those jewels. So I built this particular characters to farm the Abyss strats on at least 2 Risks Scarabs. This character have roughly 20 to 30 million DPS with some insane map clear. We are very fast mappers because we are utilizing the Soul Eater tech, and for defensive, we have Glancing Blow to cap attack and spell block. We are also spec into Chaos Inoculations, which means we are Chaos immune. We are also Ailment immune, and this is due to a setup I'll talk about a bit later. We have really good recoveries, we have high physical mitigations from the Aegis Aurora setups, and overall it is a very good character for mapping purposes. The biggest thing with this build is the Coiling Whisper setups, and this has been no strangers. It has been a month since it was figured out. You basically need to apply curse with reduced skill effect durations, and you need at least 90 to 95% to make the build feel comfy. We are a poison build, so it is okay to go a bit lower, and you are going to get 100% uptime with the Soul Eater buff, which will translate into such an ease for mapping. As you can kind of see in the background here, we have 45 stacks, so we have 225% increased cast speed, which translate into a lot of damage. For our curse applications, we will be using Bladeful of Trathus, and it's a skill that you go into a map, you press it once, and it will just keep following you throughout the map, so it's very easy and very high KOL to use. And as I said before, we need to reduce our curse durations, which means that we are going to be using Hex Touch at level 1 0% quality to have 50% reduced curse effect durations on our curse. We are using Dust Ring on the left slot to get another minus 15% skill effect duration there. And on the passive skill trees, we have 2 notables, and that is going to give us 25% reduced, and that is roughly equal to 90% reduced durations. And then for the rest of the skills, we are using the less duration support for even more skill effect duration reductions, and that should be enough to make the build feel extremely comfy. Just keep in mind that you do need to be in melee range in order to activate the Bladeful of Trathus curse, because it has a smaller area of effect, but that shouldn't be a problem because we want to be in melee range anyway. So on the Golem setups, the first thing here is that I am using the Dark Monarch, and this is very good for me in particular because sometimes my Golem are dying. I don't have the expensive cluster which give minion regenerations, which means that it is okay to run this for now. I have 2 of each Golem type. If one of them randomly die, I still have the buff, and because the buff is pretty much all of our Golem setups, so we always want the buff up to be at least 100% uptime. This unique item is by no means mandatory and can probably be dropped later on when you have better gears, better clusters, and your Golem is a lot tankier. For our particular setups, we are going to summon 2 Stone Golem, 2 Lightning Golem, 2 Chaos Golem, 2 Flame Golem. And no, they do not stack, but like I said, it's for 100% uptime on all of our Golem buff, which is highly important. We are going to have 6 Carrion Golem boards, and their main utility is to apply Withering Touch. And if you don't know, Withering Touch is like essentially double your damage if you can consistently apply 15 stacks of Wither on the enemies. Each of our Golem is equally as important, but some is better than the others. So for example, in Stone Golems, Lightning Golem and Chaos Golems, Stone Golem give us tankiness, Lightning Golems, Chaos Golem give us damage, and Flame Golem give us the AoE and a little bit of damage. Because I think AoE is good enough already, I choose to put the first 3 Golem, which is Stone, Lightning, and Chaos, in an enhanced support for even better buff. It's worth noting that I was running the Stone Golem as safeguarding before to help a bit with melee hits, but since in the setups we just have so much fist reductions, I find it a bit overkill, so that's why I have go back to the enhanced support. So just pick and choose what setups you like best. Feel free to move stuff around, try out new stuff. This setup is purely a template in which you can play around your golems and play around to get the best number that you like on the PoE. As you can kind of see, we are currently running full utility flask, and I am using the Tides of Time to keep all of our flask up 100% during mappings, and even in hideout, and even in reduced flash charge map you can run this because you are killing a lot of monster and our flask will refuel that much faster. It is very important that we have maximum uptime for our flask, because we are relying on our flask for resistance, elemental resistance, ailment immunities, stun immunities, and everything. So the flask setup is one of the most important setups that you have to understand in my setups. For our flask choices, the first 4 is almost mandatory because I choose to go with the low consume on use flask, which ended up with Bismuth, Sapphire, Ruby flask, Topaz flask, and they will give us all the elemental resistance that we'll need and freeze our suffix. And for the last flask, it is optional. I choose to go with the gold flask to have more rarity onto the build, and that will give me more gold per hour. For the charge recoveries, because we want 100% uptimes, we'll be getting our charge recoveries from the essence extraction nodes on the passive skill trees, which will give us increased flash charges gain. You can get increased charge recoveries prefix on flask to help, so you can get reduced flash charge. Overall, just take a look in PoE to see if your flash show up as 100% uptime or not. You get more charges from the Tides of Time, and finally you can get the 1 flash charge per 3 seconds roll from the Searing Exarch implicit modifiers on the body armor. In order to be ailment immune, we'll be using Storm Shrouds, and this will require us to reach 100% chance to avoid being shocked. Now, in order to get to that numbers, we'll be using T1 chance to avoid being shocked as a suffix on our flask. Because it has 100% uptime, it is very reliable, and we'll also be using Searing Exarch implicit on our boots. These go up to about 35% on like the very cheap one. And T1 chance to avoid being shocked after the buff from Tides of Time easily go up to above 65%. Couple that together and you will have your 100% chance to avoid being shocked. In this build, we are also having 100% chance to avoid stun, which is stun immunity. We will be using T1 chance to avoid being stunned on our flask, or you can craft that and get 50%. We'll get 30% from the shield masteries, and we'll get another 10% from tattoo, and that again easily push you to over 100% chance to avoid being stunned. Always keep in mind that the chance to avoid being stunned on the flask will always get upgraded from the Tides of Time, so it's always going to have more effects than what you see in your game. To keep it simple for the rest of the flask, I run T1 additional elemental resistance. This will give me all the resistance I need and overcap it so I can click on the altars. I am also running T1 increased armor on our flask to reach even better physical mitigations, and I craft rarities on my gold flask for a total of plus 50% rarity on my maps. Running juice map with rarities helps a lot with bolt generations. I know a lot of people have that problems, but even if you don't run juice map, having more rarities mean that you will get more gold from your maps, and overall it's just better because King's March is very profitable as well. The next item on the list I want to talk about is the Whisper of Infinity. Now, this new item was added in 3.26 and it gives you the line that says skill costs energy shields instead of mana or life, which means skills that cost life like Exsanguinates, Blood Rage, Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice will be able to use with Chaos Inoculations, and this is extremely strong. This is such a good scaling vectors, and it's allow us to essentially play this build, this versions with Soul Eaters, just absolutely insane synergies for the build, and we are scaling ES as well. So yeah, overall, just this is why this build is meta right now. Finally, let's talk about the Megalomaniac jewels, and this is the bread and butters of all the golem builds in the game right now. It gives you chance to get the primordial bonds, and that is such an insane notables for the golem build. Obviously, you're trying to get this on the large cluster jewels, but you're also trying to get this on your Megalo as well. Each of these will give you 10% increased damage per summon golems and 40% increased effect above bans by your golems, and overall it's just an insane notables passive skills. Obviously, Megalo price is just insane because we don't really know how you price them, but if you are just getting a single Megalo with a primordial bonds, then you are looking at from 10 to 15 divines. Try not to pay more than that. This has been the bread and butter, like I said, for all golem builds, so golem players has been buying this only. And if you have the money, obviously go ahead and get this with any other notables that is beneficial to the build. With the setup out of the way, let's talk about all of the items that I am currently using in the build. Mystic Refractor is a very cheap and powerful one. Just get one with skill fight, 3 additional projectiles, high rolls on both projectile speed and damage. It is very cheap and budget options, and it is extremely good for mapping. Aegis Aurora is extremely good on our current setups because it gives us a tons of armor and ES, which we can both use very easily. Get anything with high amount of armor and ES, then you should be good to go. For the helmet slot, we are using Dark Monarch, and try to get the high roll on your energy shields, and that's pretty much the only thing that you care about beside the golems, which is mandatory for this build, obviously. For our left ring slot, make sure it's a left ring because you put the dust ring on the left side to have 15% reduced skill effect durations. If you put it on the right side, you are going to get increased skill effect duration, which is not what we want. For the crafting of the ring itself, I was putting the Crusader orbs for the Crusader influence on this, and I was just spamming Essence of Sorrow to get the dexterities until I hit a decent amount of flat and ES on the prefix. And that's pretty much it, because we have such freedom on our suffix from our flask, giving us all the elemental resistance, and we are chaos immune. So it is very flexible and it's very easy to craft a budget ring with the setups. Next up is going to be the Coiling Whisper, and because we are chaos immune, we don't care about the implicit. And because we apply Hex with Blessful of Truthers, it doesn't really matter what the area effect of the Hex skill is. So any Coiling Whisper would work. The possible corruptions that you should be able to use on this ring is bleeding cannot be inflicted on you, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. It is, however, probably the best spot that you can get bleed immune on this build. Next up, we have the body armor, and all you need for this is a really high energy shields body armor. Ideally, you know, over 1000, it can get expensive very quickly, but because we don't really care about the suffix, it is going to be a lot cheaper still. We want to have the Searing Exarch implicit of Flask gain a charge every 3 seconds. You can craft this with the lowest level of the Searing Exarch currency. And so yeah, we need a lot of attributes in the build. This is because we are using the rune graph that increase our global defense, but it will reduce our attributes. And the 10% physical damage from hits taken as chaos is just flat 10% reduced damage taken because we are immune to chaos, so it's pretty good as well. The only thing you care about on the belt is the utility flask. Gain 3 charges every 3 seconds. We don't care about the life or mana flask because we don't use them. Try to use Bless Orb to reroll the implicit to high amount of armor as well because it also helps a bit. The best base for glove is going to be Paladin Glove. This glove gives armor and ES. On the glove, you want to craft the implicit exactly like what I have here. 15% chance to poison on hits. I think it requires tier 3 currency. And then 15% chance to unnerve enemy. Unnerve add a little bit of damage to the build, but not really that much, so don't sweat too much on it. If you are buying the glove like I do, just buy one with high dexterities, high intelligence roll already with open prefix, so you can craft on the increased projectile speed and damage. For the amulets, we are looking at any amulets that give you high amount of maximum energy shields, ideally, as high as you can get. And then we are going to quality it up even higher with the defense catalyst. The only anointment that you will be using on this build is the window of opportunities, and this is because it's going to give us the skill effect durations for the Soul Eater setups because we don't path down there. For the boot slots, I decided to go with a Warlock boot for the highest ES base. You want to get ones with high amount of ES. You want to roll the implicits to have the chance to avoid being shocked. Depending on how high you roll your flask, just make sure you cap your chance to avoid being shocked at 100%. This is where you can also get even more intelligence attributes, dexterities. You don't really need movement speed on this because we are using Frost Blink of Wintry Blast to move around. And you don't really need the elemental resistance as well, but if you do, here at the slot where you can probably get it. Next up, we have a few large cluster jewels and a few jewels to talk about. The main important things for the large cluster jewels is to have Primordial Bond in the front. And for the other nodes, you can have Renewal, but that is going to be an expensive option, costing you upward from 10 plus Divine. Next up, we have the Megalomaniac jewels, and the only thing we care about here is once again having Primordial Bond in the front. There is just so many combinations, so before you buying the jewels, always double check in PoB to see if it's in the front or not. And if it's not, then you have to waste an extra passive, which is what you don't want. For the small cluster jewels, we want to have Enduring Composers, and this gives you 1 endurance charge every second if you have been hit recently. And this means that whenever we cast the Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice, we will be gaining the endurance charge because this skill do hit ourselves, and therefore it is easy endurance charge generations. I am currently using 2 rune graph in the setups. The first one is the one that gives you longer buff, and the rune graph of the fortress, which give you increased global defense, which means more ES and armor. In terms of tattoo, we have chance to poison on hit. Tattoo, just make sure that you reach the 100% chance to poison on hit so that Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice can actually poison. And we have 1 tattoo for avoid being stunned. The next setups we want to talk about is the Primordial Eminence setups, and we need 3 of these jewels together with the Anima Stone to give us +1 to maximum number of summon Golem. And because this jewel is so cheap, you want to get one with Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you, and that is going to give you Corrupted Blood immunities. We talked about Storm Shrouds before, but this is how we get ailment immunities. We get 100% chance to avoid shock from the blast setups and the implicit on outputs. Finally, the Impossible Escape is the last jewels, and we will allocate nodes around Mind Over Matter. The 3 notables we'll be using is Hasty Demise, Essence Extractions, and Anointed Flesh. Hasty Demise is important for our Coiling Whisper setups, reduce the skill effect durations. Essence Extraction increase flash charges gain and is very important to keep our flask uptime. And Anointed Flesh just make us tankier against elemental damage. Onto the Ascendancies, I want to talk about my choice here. I am picking, obviously, you want Leech of the Primordial. This is the bread and butter of the build. It buff our Golem. And I am taking Shaper of Storm so that we have shocks on enemies and we have more damage. We are taking Shaper of Winter, so you chill enemy, reduce the action speed, so it feels very nice when you're trying to fight like Mercenary, for example. We are taking Shaper of Flames, which will also ignite enemies, and enemy ignited by you have 40% of physical damage converted to fire, which means that you are even tankier against physical damage. Now, these are some of the optional nodes. I'll say Shaper of Flame is probably the best out of all of these elemental nodes. And so you have options to take Bastion of Elements if you want as well. I find this not that good, in my opinion, with all the notables we take. I have about 1.5k shields from the Primo Aegis. So yeah, it's not really doing much for me. And Bringer of Rune is also good as well. We do have a Herald setups. And if you are allocating Bringer of Runes, we have some extra preservations, but we don't really need that. The Herald of Agony is gonna give us more damage with poisons. We also have more chance to poison on hit, so you need one less tattoo. But overall, I think my option is just going with all these Shapers elemental nodes. So yeah, just preference at this point. For the rest of the passive skill trees, I think there's not a lot of room to improve. At least in this particular setups, you have to path to get all these large jewel sockets, which leave you less room to wiggle and adjustment because you do want to take all of these nodes in the setup. So ideally, just kind of follow my setups over here. This is going to be a late game build, so you really want this at higher level. Ideally 92 to 95 to complete this version of the build. We have the Poison Mastery over here. Enemies poisoned by you cannot deal critical strikes. I opted to go for this, so it makes me even tankier and more comfy to sit in the middle of the monster pack. But if you are farming easier content, you can allocate poison. You inflict deal damage 20% faster, so you can clear the map faster. And over here, I have Glancing Blow. And eventually, I think I'll swap to a true block setups where we can have the Red Nightmare Jewel socket somewhere around here. Which and when we can tattoo the fire resistance and go true block. But for now, I think I'm happy with this current setups. I don't think I have the need to go true block right now. I can very easily fit in Tempest Shields, drop Arctic Armor, and go true block. But maybe that's for later. We have +1 to maximum endurance charge over here, very important notes. And for the last masteries, we have Leech Masteries. The Leech feel really nice and comfy for mapping. I highly recommend you guys grabbing this. And again, this is a late game trees, level 95. So this is where the build will shines. And this is the passive skill tree that I decided to go with. For our skill setups, we are looking at Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice. And the damage here are mainly for damage link. You know, we have Awakened Void Manipulation Support, Awakened Unbound Ailments, Spell Echo support. Awakened Spell Echo is like 100 diff right now, but ideally that's like an insane amount of damage upgrades. I am running Greater Volley support for additional projectiles. I am running Mystic Refractor. This is why I don't have GMP in the setup right now, but ideally if you don't run Mystic Refractor, you want to fit a GMP in here somehow. Cruelty support again for damage. For our aura setups, I am running Disciplines, Herald of Agony, Arctic Armor, and Determinations. So this is an armor ES setups. Determination is extremely strong, giving us a tons of armors and also tons of ES. And Arctic Armor is just really good. We are always almost stationary. You can move with Frostblink of Wintry Blast and it doesn't count as you moving. Besides that, Herald of Agonies give us chance to poison and Discipline give us more ES. This setups fully reserve our mana, and you can kind of see our mana is at 3 right now, so it's very optimized. Withering Touch support with Summon, Carrion Golem of the Hordes is very strong. And I also have Flame Golem here, but it doesn't really matter. So we have 6 Carrion Golem of the Hordes, and usually these one will give us enough Withering Touch support. And we'll talk about the Mercenary a bit later, which she also have Withering Touch, and she can help with applying Wither as well, so ideally we should always be at 15 Wither stacks when fighting single target. We are running an immortal setups in Outcast when damage taken. The durations of IC is buffed from the rune graph as well as the endurance charge, so it's very comfy for mappings, and we are using the Frostblink of Wintry Blast for movement. Also discussed it before, the outer curse setups is going to be Bladeful of Tratus, Hex Touch, Temporal Chains, and less durations. And you want your Hex Touch to be at level 1 with 0% quality, less durations at 20s and 20% quality. Temporal Chains at level 1. Now, Hex Touch at level 1 and 0% quality will give you 50% reduced curse durations, and it is why it's very important for this gem to stay at level 1. The Bladeful of Tratus, very good applications and automate the curse setups. The only downside is you have to be in melee, but you always be in melee casting Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice and tanking everything anyway, so it's not a problem. Finally, we have the Enhanced Golem support, and we use Enhanced support with Stone Golem, Chaos Golem, and Lightning Golem. If you want your Flame Golem to give more AoE, you can swap your Flame Golem in here. Having Flame Golem in this Enhanced support setups will give you a bit more AoE. I find myself perfectly fine with the current AoE setups for mappings and everything, so yeah, this is going to be my current setups for the skill gems. And very quick, I want to go over my mercenary as well, since a lot of people will be asking. All of this information will be in the POB as well. All these linked to the items and setups will be in the POB, where I will have my merc there. But again, I'm using a Toxicologist. She is level 84 because I caught her in the T17 map. Supposedly, this makes her a bit tankier as well. Their toughness is supposed to scale with level, and so she is 1 level higher than the typical level 83 merc. But don't worry about it too much. So for her skills, we have Withering Steps, very important to apply more Wither. It has increased area of effect. We have Chaotic Burst with Wither on hits. Supposedly, if she uses a lot, you are going to be inflicting Wither on hit as well, so even more Wither application here. She has Grace, which surprisingly is a very high level Grace. I think it's 26, and it gives us a tons of evasion as well. Trotton Agilities grants action speed overall, which is very good for our characters. A lot of synergies over here, and because she do majority of chaos damage, she is also immune to elemental and physical damage, which helps a lot. For her items, Leacast is going to be the item of choice for the helmet slots. It just gives us 50% increased damage, and overall just pretty good. Shaper's Seed, anointed with Blast Rite. The only thing we care about here is that its cursed enemies have 50% reduced life regen rates, and we curse enemy with her by having cursed enemies with despair on hits on the glove. And I'm choosing Abhorrent Interrogations. This glove gives us chance to inflict Wither on hits, so even more Wither application here, which in fact everything when paired together with our Golem setups easily put us as 15 Wither stacks. She is using Doppelganger Guise, and supposedly this will give her really good physical and chaos damage mitigations. It regenerates 10% life over 1 second when she's hit. And Combs biting nearby enemy convert 25% of their physical damage to fire. This on top of Shaper of Flame will make us even more immune to physical damage. We are running 2 rares, so the rares boosts here are supposed to help her avoid being chill, just give a bunch of chaos resistance, life regens, round out her resistance. And for the rings, the same thing as well. We are looking for life, chaos resistant, all resistance, and some ES crafted on top. We are running Dodrate Damning to apply an additional curse, so this way, when we are applying temporal chains, it doesn't really overlap with despair. And for the weapons, we are using Widow Hails with a rear guard, and this ones will give her some block chance. Widow Hails to 42% with like a 22% chance to block attack damage. This will cap her attack block, and it feels pretty tanky for her. I haven't had her dying once when I was mapping with her, and we run some really juicy and sketchy map. The main thing here is I want to point out is that I'm running a corrupted version of Rearguard, and this one have added chaos damage with bow attack, which overlap the normal implicit that add physical damage with bow attack, because ideally I want her to do only chaos damage and no physical damage. And that way she will be immune to both elemental and physical reflect, which I think she is. I have taken her into physical reflect map before, and she haven't really have any problem with surviving yet. And that's cover pretty much everything I want to cover on this build. I think this is an extremely comfy mapper, very tanky, and it can run a lot of map mods. Some of the maps modifiers is harder to run, like because it's scaled with the explicit modifiers, but the risk modifiers should be easy for us to run, so I put the rejects into the PoB as well. Also, due to popular demands, I have also included a better trading link into this build so that you can have an easier time finding the items that you want or know my exact filter to search for the items. The link to the better trading folders or the code will be in the PoB itself in the notes sections. If you have any question or suggestion, feel free to ask me in the comment section of this video. And with that, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.